couple of iterations. Um, the dash is meant to be a way of getting from a concept or an idea and working through a couple of activities to get to something where you can experiment on the desirability of it in the market. Now, it takes a lot from a lot of different inspirations, ranging from people that, like I said, have worked on it previously, and some other techniques and approaches that arguably famous people have done before me. So this is not just my kind of creation of a box where I sat in the basement with a bunch of tea and concocted and kind of like laughed really loud at things. This is more of a culmination of a lot of different perspectives. So I want to make that disclaimer. And hi, Quentin, how are you? Before I get started. So I don't think that's like right on time. I'm sitting there saying, well, this is my approach. It's more of a what seemed to be the most efficient way of taking an idea and testing it with the market outside of what's currently available. For today, there's going to be a lot of dialogue, so I'm going to be wanting to get your point of view for all the panelists that are on. So I'm going to welcome a lot of cross-collaboration, a lot of cross-talk. There will be time condensed so we don't go over 90 minutes. However, there will be some exercise when we will be implementing a 2-canvas system. So there's going to be something where you're not going to be saturated with a lot of different activities at once. It's going to be a single mural that you'll be looking at, and then I'll be sharing. And then I'll just take, after an activity is done, I'll take that activity and transfer it to the main mural that you'll see at the very end if we have time. And then I'll bring in a new activity that's completely blank so that you'll still have the context of the previous activity, but it'll bring it into the new one so that it won't be like cognitive overload. Also, I'm not going to do introductions this time around because there's a lot of people both on the panelist side as well as the people that are watching. So at some point, I'll be doing that in social and kind of saying, okay, here's the people that came and helped out with this. So that'll be where people will be able to see what you're all about. I know a lot of you already, so I think that's good. And for those I don't know, I'm about to know you really fast. So without any further ado, I'm going to share my screen and it'll look kind of blank at first. But as I said, we'll go through each exercise. There's about 5 of them today. And for each one, we'll kind of take a look at it at first. I'll explain the why behind the activity. And then after I get done with that, before we get anything, we'll have a little bit of dialogue and then we'll try it and see what seems to make sense for everybody, okay? Does anyone have any initial questions before we get started?
You'll put the link in the chat, will you, Robin?
I will, yeah, I'll put that on there. And while I was talking, hi Barad, hi Gunjan, hi Scott. How y'all doing? All right, so let's get this going. I'm going to do 2 things. First is I'm going to give you the link to the canvas as soon as I find it through the myriad of tabs that I have open on my side of things. It's funny when you actually do an inventory, you find that there's way too many that you haven't closed. I'll be putting that into the Zoom chat so you'll be able to see it there on the panelist side. And let's see. Sandy, was that you that raised your hand before? I think it was. I'll have to check. Yeah. Come on over. And for those of you who had signed up to be a panelist, we have, how many here? We have 6, 79, 89 now. So we have a few more. So if you before signed up and you want to join, then now would be the time to kind of raise your hand and say, hey, I want to kind of put this through the motions. Fatima, nice to see you. It's 1 a.m. there. If you need to go to sleep, because I know you have kids, please do that. Okay, camera's not working, that's fine, as long as you can get in. I'll go ahead and put in the chat real fast. Oh, I already did. Okay. Let me know on the panelist side, speak up on your microphone if you cannot see what the welcome to the dash. And I'll share my screen on my end over here too. So you can kind of get a bird's eye view of what I'm doing on the back side. Okay. Okay. All right, so let's go through this really fast. The dash is right now 3 days. And the day 4 and day 5 of this week are going to be how to interpret the results on day 4, and then day 5 will be the retrospective. But this is basically the process distilled down in its basic essence. First, you start off with asking some challenge questions, and we start with why. Then we go through the opportunity in terms of answering the questions, exploring the opportunities related to the questions, and then getting some ideas around those answers that we have for market potential and feasibility. From there, after we sense an opportunity somewhere, we're going to focus on the audience. That's tomorrow. You focus on the audiences for the idea and what they're all about, and don't worry if you move stuff, it's totally fine. What kind of products and services they may consider in relation to the idea, the pains that they're currently experiencing to those products and services, and then we choose a particular audience that we want to move forward with, so that we're isolating ourselves to one focus. Doesn't mean we can't go back and change it, but for the purposes of this process, that's what we're going to focus on. Then finally, the experiment. This is a little bit different if you're familiar with prototyping, in that we're not looking for a percentage of a certain audience. In this process, we'll be looking for a signal, meaning that we're going to see if of all the possibilities we want to experiment or check out, we're just trying to figure out if there's some life under the surface. Based on that initial signal that we have, or indication that the market may like it, then we'll go into a little bit more in-depth experimentation, knowing that we may have an audience, and taking our learnings from there. There are some influences that correspond to the dash, and I'm listed them here. I know them in different capacities. John Bielenberg, I interned with back in Boulder, Colorado, when I was living out there. He's got a book that's called Think Wrong that I reference from time to time, and a couple of his exercises are referenced in here. Jake Knapp, I followed his work for a while. In fact, I built a business around it, and initially met him out in Paris. Nice guy, tall as expected, but a lot of his approaches to how to get from idea to concept have influenced this a lot. Alberto Savoia, who I met this year, had him on a podcast. He's very active in kind of showcasing his point of view around Bayes' theorem, or how to get from how to get to the market desirability through hypothesis. Warren Berger, who I've never met, in contrast, but something that was top of mind when I was in the enterprise space around how to ask questions that really evoke the right ideas and being careful about language. And then finally, Jonathan Stark, you're going to see his work in day 2, where it's about audience targeting and being able to understand what you're providing that's going to be different from everybody else. I include his book here, even though I'm not referencing his work there, but it's worth knowing that he's very good at positioning, about being able to make yourself succinct in the market, or unique. And a lot of his work is really interesting. He's been doing it for, I think, over a decade, I think. He's been around for a while. I also want to highlight the contributors that have been helping out so far. And if I've missed anyone, please let me know. Like if there's somebody in a session that you're aware of that was part of the thinking that went into the dash, then I want to highlight them here. Graham's on the call here, Johannesburg, South Africa. Really good. He's better than I am, actually, at being able to synthesize different process and kind of put them together in a convenient way. Daniel Herrera, who we all call we call it, I'm forgetting his nickname now, but he's the Swiss Army knife of design sprints, in that he's very versatile, very accommodating. Lisa Weinsberger, great facilitator. Florian Hemaster, he was instrumental in being able to tell me to simplify things, and he didn't say much sometimes, but usually his observations were really good at kind of honing and shaping the way the dash is. Sandy Lamb, I would call my partner in crime, because she's been with me for over a year, doing a lot of different kind of endeavors, whether it was a podcast or design or templates. And usually she's the first person I go to make sure I'm not being crazy about things, especially when I just message her out of the blue saying, hey, what do you think of this? So she tolerates that. Barad is somebody that's very good at playing devil's advocate, and was really good at asking some critical questions about the dash and challenging some notions I had about things. So much so that I pretty much rewrote about 75% of it over the weekend based on the old notes. So Barad, you are responsible for all my sleep deprivation. I don't put that on your shoulders publicly. I'm only kidding. and Yasir, who I will forever remember as the person who will never let me live down the fact that if I'm late for something, he's going to remind me. But he's also a really comprehensive mind in terms of Agile and Scrum and being able to take process. He's very active in practicing design sprints and allowing people to, and kind of encouraging learning by doing. So that's a summary of everyone that so far has contributed or has influenced the Dash in and of itself. Again, if I did miss anybody, put it in the chat so that next time around when I do an introduction, I'll have them kind of put here the contributors space, okay? So what's going to happen is I'm going to start removing things from this space, and I'll basically show you. I'll take everything from day one downwards and just hit the delete key, and this is going away. So if this is going to be your particular canvas, you're going to start seeing things here where at first I'll put it in, and again, I'll give the purpose, and then we'll walk through it, okay? So give me a minute. I'm going to pause my share, and I'm going to add a dynamic to this where I'm going to ask a trivia question in between me kind of putting the different exercises into this canvas. So the first one I have, and you can go ahead and put it into chat if you know the answer, is how many teeth does an aardvark have? If you know the answer, go ahead and put it in the chat. And I'll be right back. As you can guess, you'll have the amount of time available to you based on how fast it takes me to kind of put something into this canvas. No guesses. Am I seeing this right? Maybe I got the chat window wrong. No, the chat's right there. And what was the question? The question was, how many teeth does an aardvark have? Yep, and Amir saying it's 0 teeth. That's exactly right. Cool. All right, so here's the first activity. We're going to start with why and create some challenge questions. Now, the reason behind this, originally it was, let's start off with an interesting question. It was very open-ended. What I noticed is that people were kind of going all over the map and using how might we as a way of starting, which is jumping the gun a bit because we were in the problem space a bit too deep. So what I'm doing here with this particular exercise is I'm posing the question why first, and speculating on some things that we take for granted in the modern world. So things like, why does social media have to be so addictive? Or why aren't the unemployed able to find work again after the pandemic? And I try to include different exercises on the left here so that you can get an idea of what the nature of this exercise here's over on the right. What we're going to be doing with these is once we kind of write out these questions, and then we're probably going to take it to a vote. So we have like kind of like a top 3 that we move forward with. We're going to try to answer those questions as best we can, but we're going to answer them in different ways. I won't give it away yet. So panelists, if you have any observations or any questions or any, which is how we say, like thoughts, then feel free to come off the mic and go ahead and give your thoughts. But what I'll do is I'll kind of light the fire a bit, and Graham, I'm going to call on you. I'm going to just basically ask you, what do you think initially of this particular starting point?
So it's a fairly open-ended starting point. So one of the curiosities I have is if you're taking it into a group of people who, in a particular context, for example, a company or a team within a company, they often have a starting point that is much more focused in, just as a noticing more, depending where you take the product. So this is very open-ended to tackle some interesting stuff that bubbles to the surface, and it would only require a small modification with, working with a tighter frame, for example, a team at a company.
You would probably also have to be careful politically, especially if people ask like hidden questions with something, some kind of message underneath, like why does the CEO take so many vacations? That kind of thing. Especially if it's anonymous, may actually stir the wrong kind of thinking. So to your point, yeah, this particular starting point would be changed if it was business centric, so that it would probably be more around like having a focus, like whether it's a project or if it's like an certain initiative, or maybe it's challenging the company around why are we underperforming.
Yeah.
Something like that. Maybe the question is already kind of closed and it's a closed-ended question. So yeah, to your point, this exercise would change based on the conditions that we're talking about.
Yeah, I also came across in questions a term called an eigen question, which is can't remember who coined it, but it's essentially the concept that what's the one question which, if you answers many of the other ones.
That'd be interesting, kind of put up there. So Americo, you got your mic off. What do you have any thoughts about the way this is structured?
Just my first idea, the first thing that came to my mind is that the dash at a given point, give him the reason that the dash is something that requires people to have skin in the game. It's a bit like I'm told that it's too much open-handed, and we may need to find that eigen question, right, Gary? Eigen question, I think. So I didn't follow the team in the last round, but I'm looking forward to have to apply this process to something that can have no starting point.
Okay. Darwin, what are your thoughts about this so far? At least just the initial starting point.
I like that it's quite broad. I think that's the novelty of it. I'm not thinking of application yet, but I just wanted to see how it flows, seeing that it's the first time that I'm jumping into a dash, actually. So quite open.
Okay. And finally, JF, what are your thoughts about this?
I definitely agree with the statements that Graham made initially, in that, especially in my context, I'm going to approach this from a very focused set of viewpoints and questions, primarily because as a software engineer, we're trying to solve various problems. And so most of the things we're going to do are start off with a question of why or how, right? So that kind of thinking at least resonates with me here in having those. Most of the time, what I find problematic with some of the things right now on the Agile world is that there's this concept of a product backlog, and very few people understand the why of why we're doing such things. And this is a good way of framing things in that perspective. So.
All right, any other thoughts from any of the panelists' side? Anything else you'd like to kind of make an observation about? Or are we good to go? Between Cody and Finn and Barad, all right. Gunjan, do you want to say something?
What were your thoughts when you started this?
I thought that too many times we went through, especially in lightning decision jams, we kind of presupposed that there was a problem. When really it may not be a problem. It may just be a point of view that's kind of disguised as a problem. So what I wanted to try to do was to ask open-ended questions without how might we, which seemed to be further down the problem kind of evaluation stream. And for this goes into a more beautiful question concept where there's certain stages of thinking where everything seems to start with like an open-ended question around like why does this exist, or why do we have to kind of do that. So that was kind of the thinking around kind of approaching it this way. Go ahead.
Because the questions you have chosen are very interesting. And that's why I was thinking, from what perspective did you come up across, or did you kind of, give birth to these questions, so as to say?
Some of them come from the previous sessions. Some come from that book I mentioned, and others I put in there just because it was late at night. And I thought, okay, like why must we always seek consensus about the issues? That there's actually more understanding in having people that don't agree with what we agree about, and being able to kind of see this in a different light. Yeah. So that was something that if I had time, I would write an article about, but not this weekend. At some other time, it's in the hopper. So if you're on the panelist side, why don't you go ahead and try going through these motions. Now, I will say that why should I and why doesn't, you don't have to put why should I questions horizontally. You can basically fill in the white boxes, digital cards here with any of these questions starting out with that. It's totally up to you. For those of you who have never used Mural before, it's simply a matter of taking your mouse and double clicking on one of the cards and putting in the question that comes to mind. There is no limits in terms of how many questions you can have, and there is no minimum. If this ends up being a blank screen at the end of 5 minutes, that's totally fine. But go ahead and put things that you want to speculate on that would be interesting for you to ask.
Why is the first sample question of why should I is a why can't we?
Oh, my fault. That's, so there we go. There we go. Okay, and that's why can't we down here. I think that's just one of those small little mistakes I made while I was kind of drafting this out.
Was that 3 a.m. at night or something?
No, actually 1:30. I went to bed on time the past 3 days. I was shocked.
Oh, wow, okay.
I was like, no, I don't really need to correct that. Sandy's going to correct it later on. I can just wait till she comes around and she'll tell me what I do wrong. Okay, so I'll start 5 minutes. You'll also see me kind of mute microphones across the board. No offense to anyone here. It's just to make sure that we don't have any cross kind of contamination, including on my side, because like I said, I've got a consultant that's going to come up from his sleep because he's been sleeping late and may give an appearance. So have at it. Come off microphone if you have any questions.
In the list of questions that you have, the questions kind of, they don't necessarily seem to run, like they're not all affiliated with each other.
No, they're not.
Yeah, so is the idea to just populate questions, or do you want to kind of sort of have like a key question at the top that you're continuing to ask in different ways, or either or?
You could take inspiration from what others kind of put here. So you can, if you see another question that someone else has done, you can always just go ahead and take that and say, well, actually I got a variation of that one, and just change a few words or change the focus. So you can actually bridge off of what people do. At least in this open-ended exercise, you can do that. And I'll repeat, you can move things around in here and it's totally fine. The more important thing is that we get certain outcomes from this exercise. And like I said, I have a 2-canvas system in place. So I'll be taking what we do here, extracting it, removing it, and then putting in the new exercise so that the focus is just on what we're kind of concentrating on.
Rob, can I play the devil advocate?
I hope you do.
Can you elaborate on whether you have thought about picking a more specific challenge?
So when I thought of the more specific challenge, the way this exercise changes is that it would be more to Cody's point, where there would be a central question at the very top, where there wouldn't be all of the left-hand side questions. It would be one particular approach to, like, it would be like a, what would you say, a theme, or like a title to this, where the questions can kind of live or contain. So that if it's about business revenue or nonprofit revenue generation, then it can still be open-ended, but the questions actually directly align with that focus, that business focus, or that community focus that the people want to put in there. That would be the flip between this open-ended version of things and then one that's closed. We have about half a minute left. If you need some more time, go ahead and put a thumbs up, or actually, yeah, put a thumbs up in your chat window, not store chat window, but in your Zoom window if you're a panelist, and let me know if you need some more time. Otherwise, I'll assume when we go to the end, we're all set. If you're not sure how to do it, just type thumbs up in the chat. Okay. So Barad wants a little bit more time, so we're going to have 1 more minute. And I will try to refrain from all of the, I'll make it 2 minutes actually. I'll refrain from all of the ladies and gentlemen jokes that I made the first time around when we had the signal from Mural that everything was done. If you missed out on that from the last session, it's okay. We have about 10 seconds left. Go ahead and finish up your thoughts on the car that you're currently working on. And we'll take a pause from here and get a little bit into the questions themselves. Okay, so while people are finishing up, what I'd like the panelists to do is take a look at the questions that have been asked. And for particular questions that catch your eye, if you want some clarification on the question and the background on it, go ahead and come off microphone and let me know which particular question you're interested in. And as you do that, go ahead and give it a different color. So if you're interested in, say, why can't we make remote learning for K2 better for kids, you go ahead and take that and you can highlight in one of your favorite colors. So let's say mine is light green. And then I'll just come off mic and say, hey, Robert, I've got a question about this one. And then say the question. And whoever did that particular card can speak up and give some context around it. So a little bit of a clarification period before we get into any kind of voting, so we can understand intent a bit better by some of the questions. So I'll give about a minute or 2 minutes for that. You can extend it out if we find that many people are asking different questions. So feel free to speak up if you want some more context around a particular question. In the meantime, what I'll do is I'll kind of take out some of the white boxes here, and I'll start condensing the questions up top.
More of a general one. So for example, this one I'm changing to the color. So this is corresponding to the why does, right? Or is it something else?
I'm not sure. I didn't start with why. Who wrote the focus of the project take priority over process?
Same as this one here.
Yeah.
There are a few more at the bottom. So.
Yeah. So who wrote the focus of the project take priority over process? Anyone? Bueller? Anyone? No one wrote that one? You mean we have a rogue person kind of coming into this? Or maybe it was Cody, she went away for a second. Hey, Cody, were you the person that wrote the focus of the project take priority over process?
Yes. Sorry, I have a senior dog who was losing his brain.
Okay. Usually these are kind of written as whys. What was the intent behind this one?
Why does the focus of the project take priority over the process?
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I wrote them as a using the pre-words here. That one's also mine, and that's why can't we value group process as a part of an essential part of productivity?
Got it. Okay, so that was my fault. I didn't specify that you had to kind of include the why inside the question.
That's okay.
So this also would be why can't we take responsibility? Got it. Okay, I understand your thinking now. I am clarifying that. Good.
I was using it like a Mad Libs, so I was just filling in the blank.
That's okay. Totally fine. By the way, I'm a big fan of Mad Libs, especially on road trips. Well, you can tell how tired people are sometimes. Job posting focus on degrees and experience.
Also, it's why do.
Why do?
Yeah.
Job postings focus. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why must we? I can fix this one.
I have a question on one of the cards.
Which one, JF?
What does the card is, why is cordial hypocrisy a norm for many work cultures?
Can you highlight? Is it this one?
Yeah, this one. I don't understand what cordial hypocrisy means.
Cordial hypocrite?
Yes, I don't know what's. I don't have the context. It's the first time I'm hearing this word.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I agree with JF as well. I was wondering what it meant. I actually Googled it and I couldn't find anything.
So who wrote why is cordial hypocrisy a norm for many work cultures?
I wrote it. It's about a case I had with a client last week, and he was talking with me about some issues in his team, and where he felt he would have to be somewhat cordial, despite the subject wasn't that cordial, but he will have to be cordial to keep the team together. Let's say, to not raise that many issues that could put him in a situation where he will dislike to be. I have to be cordial, despite this is not exactly something that I would like to do. But if I'm not that cordial, I may be judged by others and not get and be put at the side because I have such a perspective. It's just about that.
I understand now the context. Thank you for the explanation.
Maybe another word if you want to add something.
Oh no, this is your thing. We just want to make sure we clarified it.
Yep. Do I take the color off, Robert, at this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
You would. And Gia, hello. I have the link. There's a link there. Okay. Any other last questions before we kind of go to a vote with this? And what we're going to be voting on are, or why do we let internal monopolies exist as another color that's highlighted here?
That was mine, Robert. It's a concept out of Gary Hamel's latest book called Humanocracy, where monopolies are considered to be bad things, and yet we have internal IT departments, HR departments, finance departments, which build our monopolies. So it's the concept of why do we let these internal monopolies run our show if you're on the business side of the fence.
Okay, cool. Thank you for that. I'll take this back to white. Any other ones you want an explanation or context out? Going once, going twice. All you have to do is just highlight it in color. You don't have to call it out by voice. And like all, to give proper context, the reason why instead of going straight to a vote was that I noticed in previous exercises, people were kind of wondering why a particular question was being asked or wanted context to it. They weren't sure if they could vote on it or not. This is a better way of kind of going about it. And Diana, I don't think we can hear you if you're asking that question. And Quentin, I can give you the link. And you're right there. So if you're on the panelist side, you'll be able to get the link. But if you don't, if you're an observer or something, then that it's purposeful. We're just kind of limiting it to the panelists so that we don't oversaturate the space. Someone highlighted, why do we have to change our working culture?
Yeah, it was me.
Okay.
And I was just wondering if I could have a little elaboration on this one.
Who was the person that authored that one?
It was me. So I thought, I saw these other questions concerning working culture. As one of them was the cordial hypocrite. So the questions just came to mind. Why do we really have to change? What is our motivation for changing from the status quo?
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
All right. The vote that we're going to be doing are the top 5 questions you see in this space. So we're going to get 5 votes. Place your votes on 1 card per vote. Don't try to stack them, please. I know you may be really enthusiastic over why employees are disengaged globally and put all 5 of your votes there. That's great you're so happy about it, but try to temper it and just put 1 vote per card. You won't be voting on the gold cards, nor will you be voting on the cartoon at the bottom left, just on the cards that are currently in front of you for questions. So we'll go ahead and start it up. Everyone gets 5 that's here, and have at it. If you have any problems with voting or your votes don't seem to be registering, a good fix is basically just to refresh your browser window. It'll give you a different animal name because you're anonymous, but you'll still be able to put your votes in. Now, you do have the option of not placing your votes on questions. Let's say you're only interested in 2 of them. You don't need to distribute your votes to 3 others that you are not that enthusiastic about. So you may just say, okay, I'm just going to put 2 or 3 down and I'm done. If that's the case, just go ahead and put done in the chat, and then I'll know that your vote count is staying at 2 or 3 or 4, and that you've already made your decisions. I will also say for people that have never used Miro before, no one can see your mouse cursor and no one can see your votes. The only way you can see someone's votes is currently if I start doing them and you're watching the YouTube stream on this. Looks like Darwin's in first in terms of people getting done. Gujim is right behind him. And it's Graham, Sandy, and Finn all looking to basically get their votes in for third. And we have Graham coming in third. I'll let everyone know when we're getting close to being done. Yeah. Rod, I see you with 3 votes left. Are you still voting, or are you done? Oh, you're still voting. Never mind. Forget I said anything. Quentin, let me just double check. I believe, yep, I think you have to come over to where we are in order to be able to see the link. Hang on. I'm gonna bring you on over. And then that way you can kind of figure things out. Yep, now you're here. And that should be where we are with things. Okay, so everyone's voted. I'll go ahead and shut the voting session down. Let's see what came out as our tops. So it looks like we have 3. Why do job postings focus on degrees and experience? Why can't we combat ageism in the workplace? And why can't we solve systematic problems quickly? And then we have a lot of 2s. So I think the threshold probably is for 3 votes here. So great, we have those 3. What I'm going to do is, like I said, with the 2 canvas system, I'm going to first make room on my source and kind of take out what I have here. I'm going to highlight the ones that I know are the top so I don't lose the voting focus. And make those green. And then by magic, you're going to see these all disappear. Flop. I promise I won't make sound effects like I do just now. I need to think about it. I'm very highly reliant on cut and paste at this point. So if my cut and paste fails, then I'm in deep trouble. Okay, so while I'm getting the next one ready, the trivia question is how many bones are there in an adult human? If you know the answer, go ahead and put that in chat. And this is maybe a matter of how fast you Google things. So oh, so far nobody's got it right. Close, and Graham comes in with the answer of 206. Close to a 200, but not quite there. Okay. Give me 30 seconds. Now, during these periods where you're waiting for the next one to come up, you're more than welcome to start up a topic of conversation in between, so you're not kind of posing. Or if you'd like, you can get up from your chair where you are and go get a quick drink, or just grab something fast. Usually the time space that occurs between events is going to be about anywhere from 30 seconds to 2 minutes, depending on how fast I work. So feel free to kind of make an exit to do what you need to do, and then you come back and catch us midstream, okay?
So I was very tempted to add the question, why did the chicken cross the road?
And that, if that would have been top voted, I would have been like, all right, we're going to have ourselves an event. So, you know, feel free. This is experimental, so I'm more than happy if you want to kind of go down that path. Okay, next one is coming in. So the next exercise is going to be how might we answer these questions? So here's our top 3 that we put in here. And what I'm going to do, so there's 2 ways of doing it. Actually, my instructions didn't pass over. Hang on. At least they were supposed to. I don't know why they didn't. I had them highlighted. There we go. Maybe it just wasn't refreshing on my end. So there's 2 ways of answering these questions. At the top, and you know, a lot of times when you go through these exercises, they ask you, okay, think of the ideal answer. You know, think of what you do. I think it's more beneficial if you actually look at it from things from like a backwards point of view, or even a very bad way of kind of answering them. Now, you don't, for reference in this particular exercise, you don't have to have, why can't we combat ageism in the workplaces? You just have to think of crazy, weird answers. You can think of terrible and absolutely awful ways of answering these questions. You're more than welcome to do that for each of these. But in contrast, at the bottom, you want to basically think of alternative, wonderful, absolutely amazing ways of answering these questions. But the idea behind it is that you're going to look at the bookends, the extremely negative and the extremely positive, or somewhere in that focus, and figure out between those 2 contrasts what are some interesting ways of answering these things. So what kind of reactions do you have to this exercise? And I'll start with Graham again, because he's typically somebody who has insight right off the top of his head.
I think sometimes getting people out of conventional ways of looking at a problem is very, very useful. Some people find it difficult. So once people start to seed an idea at the top, it kind of can unlock some creative juices. So I really like the idea of giving people, they give themselves permission to be creative in answering it in a sort of non-typical way. So I like that.
Quentin, you joined us a little bit earlier. What do you think of this approach to kind of taking the questions that we voted on and kind of answering them both in a negative and a positive fashion? And you can search for the unmute button. There you go.
Yeah. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Yes, I like it actually. I'm used to use it in my workshops. So I know it's a good way to open minds and to discover opportunities, very hidden opportunities to answer to a question. So yeah, I didn't have done it this way, but I just discover the questions like this. I like it. It's some kind like it's a role play, something like that. Sometimes when you can wear the cap of a superhero and you have a superpower and you answer to the questions differently depending on the superpower you have. It's another way to do this, I think.
Okay. And Scott, you have the last word on this one. What's your point of view on this?
Yeah, I guess it'd be interesting to see if it also plays the role of like devil's advocate. To see if there's any, maybe some people think what's a terrible idea ends up being someone's proposal for a good idea.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Then let's have this. Let's have at this then. So go ahead and start filling in the white digital cards with some answers to the questions in both the terrible, awesome, absolutely awful, or crazy weird way of answering them, and then in contrast, the alternative, wonderful, or absolutely amazing way to answer them. There are no right or wrong answers with this. This is just going to be speculating on which direction you can go. And I'm also silently voting. I'm considering which one of these is probably going to be more popular. So let's see what happens. I'll give you 5 minutes to kind of ponder this a bit, and let's see where it goes. If you have any questions or clarifications, go ahead and come off microphone. I'll be going through the motions of muting everyone, and let's see what happens.
Robert, are you there, Robert? Yeah.
Sorry, I was speaking to my consultant. Go for it.
So the question, there's a difference between a weird answer to a question and a weird way to answer the question. Now, the title says weird way, but it's just to confirm that's exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah.
In other words, a way is a method rather than an actual answer.
Yes. Just the answer. It's what you're thinking. It's just basically like to kind of take a step back and what would be a weird way to answer that. Okay. The purpose behind it is to give a compare and contrast between the two, and just to see where people's like approaches may be both on the positive and the negative side. We have less than a minute left. If you'd like to get some more time to kind of think about how to answer these questions, go ahead and put a thumbs up in the Zoom window, or you can just put a +1 in the chat, and I'll basically increase the time on the clock. Okay. And for reference, you can also do that in the future without me prompting. I'll also add that as a facilitator, I'm not an always on camera kind of person. So if there's a moment where you have to kind of go off camera, but you're still participating, I'm totally fine with that. Anyone need more time before the timer runs out? Just put a +1 in chat or give me a thumbs up, either way. No? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we would ask that you completely won't go there. I can do it again. Go ahead and finish up whatever card you were working on, and I'll kind of go over here. And like I was thinking, it's much easier to kind of think of a wrong way to answer this than it is the right way to answer it in terms of just the volume of questions, which is totally fine. Yep, Gunjan, I'll go ahead and put that link in there. Hang on one second. So what are your thoughts about this exercise after going through it? And actually, I'll change that. Normally what we would do after this is that we would look at how to answer those particular questions and look at the volume in terms of the amounts of answers that one particular question has, and kind of seeing if that's the one we want to go with. So before we go to a vote, is there anything that you want to clarify in terms of what somebody else has put here?
So Robert, from my side, I have a noticing that relating to my previous question is a way to answer or the answer. And many of them are answers to the question rather than ways to answer the question.
Okay, so the language there should have been more specific.
Yeah, and possibly an example contrasting the two.
Okay. Okay. Any other observations?
I think instead of, because I think right now we are still in the too early to sort of like thinking about the solutions and answers. Right now we are in the divergent mode and we're trying to explore the topic. So instead of a terrible way to answer or an absolutely awful way to answer, I would flip it and say for example, another terrible way to form this question. So I would keep it still on the question phase and try to ideate alternative questions regarding each topic.
Okay. Thanks for that. Okay.
Robert?
So, go for it.
Yeah. I have two impressions to share with you and the whole group. The first is that I have some difficulties to focus on one questions, as we have to answer to 6 questions at a time. So my brain has difficulties to ideate on a questions. And there is two categories, very different categories. Some is positive, negative, and some other is more positive. And I ask myself, maybe it would be easier to cut the exercise in two, or maybe why not in. I don't know what is the perfect exercise here, but it's a lot for me to achieve in one exercise here. And so, I wonder what is really a crazy word or terrible or an absolutely awful. I can see some answers, but an alternative way to answer, I don't really know what it means. Maybe it's because of my English, but I don't know. A wonderful way to answer, I'm not quite sure. And an absolutely amazing, I'm too shy to say it's absolutely amazing. My answer will be absolutely amazing on this question. So as a participant, I don't know really what to write here.
So it's sounding like through the comments that the language is very important here. Also that there could be too much going on for people to kind of be able to do in 5 minutes. Like there's too much like focus switching between 3 different options is the impression I'm getting with this. So that while the intent is that you have different variety to choose from, it would have been better to be more focused on after the first exercise with this one. And in the same token, being able to use language where it was like, okay, here's one way where it wouldn't be intuitive to go in a certain direction. That's for my consultant. And then the other is to use language that's a little bit more vanilla in terms of like saying, okay, here's how you would initially answer. So you're not giving a finality to it. It's more, this is where you could go with things. Okay.
I think one of the other things that was challenging was with the 3 different ways on the 3 different questions. Even though I knew I could apply the 3 different ways to each of the questions, I still found my mind was like limiting it to the one that was above the question. So it was kind of like artificially limiting, the terrible ways to only the question under the terrible content, like column, versus like I could have answered any of the questions with any of the 3 ways, but my brain had trouble computing that in the moment.
Yeah. Okay. So let's do a quick kind of mouse vote here, so that it's not necessarily using the votes from the, we're not going to use Miro's voting tool just necessarily. So we have 3 different questions here. What I'd like you to do is kind of put your mouse over the question that you want to move forward with. So it's either why can't we combat ageism in the workplace, and you move your mouse like this, or why can't we solve systematic problems quickly, or why do job postings focus on degrees and experience? So if you could, go ahead and take your mouse and circle it over the question that you want to kind of move forward with.
Yellow ones. Otherwise, people are going to get the same questions in blue. So you want on the yellow ones or the blue ones?
Yes, on the ones on the bottom. So sorry, on the for where I'm at, let me bring everybody over to where I'm at. Although getting my Zoom calls, hey, you're down there. Okay, so we have about 4 or 5 on the center. We have 3 on the left. And we have 1 on the right. It looks like the center one's looking at a little bit more attention. So what we're going to do, thank you for that, everyone. What we're going to do is we're just going to concentrate on the center part here. And I'm apt to kind of delete the things over here, but just focus on this particular one here. I'm going to give it a slightly different color. And what we're going to do out of the 6 cards that are here, you're going to vote on one particular, actually, let's make it 2. Go ahead and vote on 2 particular answers that you find interesting. And then we'll go into the next activity and I'll show you kind of how it kind of moves from place to place. So you're going to be putting 2 votes on one of the 6 cards that are down here. Okay, on under a wonderful way to answer, why can't we solve systematic problems quickly? So you're going to be ignoring everything on the left, ignoring everything on the right, and just those 6 answers for that particular question. Okay, so you're going to be voting on which particular answer seems to align best with that question. And let's see where this takes us. And to Quentin's point, we're basically provide focus from this point forward so that we're just singularly working on something rather than kind of stretching our minds or stretching our cognitive attention to more than just 3 different possibilities. We have a visiting koala and Sandy Lamb. Oh, there we go. Okay, I'll go ahead and, oh, a rhino just appeared. Is about to vote. There we go. Oh, then the koala is active. Okay. For a minute there, I thought the koala was just kind of there as a fixture. I'll wait for the koala and the rhino to get done voting, and then we'll go ahead and close it down and see what comes up. And for some of the
voting.
What's that?
The koala is done voting.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I'm done voting, whatever. I don't know if I'm on the koala.
Yeah, so Barad posted that he'd stay in the question realm rather than jumping to the answer realm. I think it's still, I think the answer is yes. This was experimental in nature. That's the reason why I had done it. So I'm just kind of seeing where this particular one would go. Normally I would do the same thing, being my experience with the design sprints is kind of keeping in the problem space, but this is intentful to kind of do it this way. Okay, going once, going twice, about to end the voting session right about now. And let's take a look. So looks like we have 2, because everything is connected and complex and need time to understand. We look at the past solutions and create a dialogue on what we missed. Okay, fantastic. So I'll go ahead and highlight those 2. I'll be taking those over into a different canvas. And this time, instead of me asking the trivia question, let's see if one of you can kind of come up with something else. So if you were to ask a trivia question to everyone here, what would you ask? Like, what would be an interesting trivia question you'd like to pose? And in about 10 seconds, everything you're seeing here is about to go away. Actually, make it 15 seconds. No trivia questions? None? Okay. Here's a one for you. How many pedals do most modern pianos have? Pedals are the things that the little foot pedals we're talking about.
Daddy, look, I got a golden plate.
I'll look in 1 second, bud. Hang on.
This is so awesome. I have a golden plate.
Doing a little bit of adjusting on mine in terms of moving things around. I'll be about a minute, so if you want to get up, stretch a bit, you should have some time to do that if you'd like. Not right now, Alden.
Look at it.
I can't. I'm busy, bud.
Well, then I can't show you.
You can show me later.
I need to deliver this to the person.
Oh, you do? Okay.
So, yeah, so
I can't, unfortunately.
Well, comes around because I have another golden plate. I have another golden plate. I mean, like, everything I take is a golden plate. This is a golden plate.
Alden? Okay, so I've narrowed this down a bit. So the intent of this particular exercise, if you're wanting to know we're back now, the intent of this exercise is to explore some opportunities and speculate on outcomes. So if you've seen before, there is the question of why can't we solve systematic problems quickly? And the answer we initially gave is because everything is connected and complex and needs time to understand. So what we're going to do at this point is start asking what if questions. So in this particular context of this question, you're going to start asking, for example, what if we could use prototyping to combat the fear of failure? These are all different examples of how to use these particular questions. In this case, why can't we solve systematic problems quickly? And the answer is because everything is connected and complex. Need time to understand. What potential what if could be, what if we could easily break down a systematic or a complex process using a mobile tool of some type. Or if you want to get specific about a particular kind of process, you can put that down in your what if. But these are meant to be speculative questions related to where you can go with this particular state in the modern world. And based on that, the what if is basically going to be feeding into a then. So what if we had this particular ones, then these are the benefits, or these are the outcomes of this particular situation. So if you have a particular what if about this, it's meant to feed into this result down here. So this is the existing state of systematic problems, and everything is connected and complex. Then you can ask what if questions related to this question, this set. Based on what we answer in this section, we go down here to then. Then what if we were to do this? Then these would be the tangible results for that. So Graham, you have the first thought about this. What do you think of this approach?
I'm still digesting it. So I think, so the top two are about a current state in the world, and we're just now letting our mind run free in order to try and find a solution. What if we were to do this? What if we do that? I think it'd be interesting to see how many ideas we get up there, because I'm personally feeling quite trapped at this point, but that's me.
Can you elaborate on that?
My creative juices are a bit dry, I think, that's I said, is my reflection of where I am. But I'm going to give it a go. Okay.
Is it because the question and answer, or the things that are feeding into this are too general, or it's just because the what if is challenging you to think of something that you would need time to think about?
Yes, I think a bit of time to digest for me here is probably what's holding me back. So why can't we solve problems quickly? Because there's so much connection and time is needed. Okay, I'm going to give it a go.
And a good place to start could be basically asking the diametric opposite of that answer. So it could be one way of thinking about it, as a way of kind of flipping it on its head. But the idea basically is, it's like, okay, you can ask what if questions, like if something was different, like,
yeah,
that's the entire notion of it. I'm also going to go by body language here. So I'm going to call on Barad, who's deep in thought. So Barad, what are your initial thoughts about this?
So my understanding of this is like we are going to form opportunities to address this. Let me just close the window. Yeah, I think it's not easy because the topic itself is very complex. But I think I like the format of it because allow me to form different questions. Basically, you're trying to encourage us to form opportunities into different type of questions.
It's to challenge convention, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm taking things at face value and kind of going in that direction.
Yeah, I generally fare better with deal better with questions. So I like this exercise.
Cody, what are your thoughts?
Although the topic is complex.
Yeah.
Initially, the three, I was struggling with finding the difference between the three what ifs. But I don't feel as constrained there anymore.
Okay.
It's kind of like, what if this happened? What would be the action and what would it allow us to do?
It's different from how might we in that it's not necessarily trying to think of a solution. This is more postulating on possibilities. So again, it's not trying to get to succinct answer pairing with things. It's more like more atmospheric in a way. Darwin, what are your thoughts about this?
I'm struggling with the bigness of the question, actually. But I'll give it a go. I think the prompts are there. What if, what if? So it's a what if then, really, tag team. So let's see how it goes. But I'm kind of like struggling with the question.
Do you think that the original question needed to be a little bit smaller in scope for these what ifs to be more palpable?
I would think so. And it's kind of like heavy with assumption already, like systemic problems are already like almost always takes a lot of time to solve. Anyway, it's that adjective, I think, that's just prompting me. But I think the what if and the then should probably open it up. So I'll give it a go.
Okay. And JF, you got the last word. What are you thinking about this?
I like the what if then scenarios that are put here. I think what I'm having trouble right now is the question itself, meaning the systemic problems. It's too huge a question. And so it takes time for me to actually step back and think, what am I really looking at here? And how do I want to attack this really complex, almost chaotic problem to begin with?
Would it have helped if the original exercise would have asked for a little bit of marginality, where it's okay to ask why questions, but make sure that you're centering on a particular topic or a particular subject matter?
I don't know if that would make a difference. It depends on the scenario and the situation that you're in, right? Because I mean, for this one, I mean, yeah, I could see this where, let's say, why can't we solve systemic problems quickly into why can't we solve, for example, the systemic problem of racism here in the US?
Yeah.
Right? Something like that. So I think a little bit of focus might help, but it's still meaty though, if you try and do that.
It could be also where this first exercise was far gone, where the why is actually asked. The why is the container. And then the answer, the initial answers you give are just basically your gut reactions to the question. So that it's like you don't have to really focus on the why per se, but because it was open-ended, it kind of left things to interpretation.
Yes.
So maybe a little bit of a closed container with that first one would help.
Yep. Yep. I think so.
Okay. So I think the medium has been everyone works while we talk, which is perfect. If you are kind of typing or finishing up your thoughts, wrap those up, and then we'll go straight into kind of I think with the time we have left, I could leave it open to dialogue. Normally I would ask for clarification on some of the questions. If you do see rather than doing it this time around, we'll work through this exercise and then we'll put a stop to it at the bottom of the hour so I can give you back the rest of your day. And leave the rest of the exercises for another time. Day 2 will basically preload the exercises here and then fill in the blanks for what we didn't get done and kind of go from there. So it'll give you a scenario of what to kind of work through. So I'll wait till these last few boxes are filled up and we'll take it to a vote. Now for this particular exercise, we had to narrow down to just a single what if. So there, out of the 15 that you see here, there's going to be one that we're moving forward to provide a little bit of focus, whereas before we didn't have as much. I'm going to chat really fast. What can we do? 3. Oh. Yes, Graham, you were correct. It's 3 petals. Problem that is too slow by way because we can't speak. That's really weird, Diana. I don't know why. Have you tried? If you're on a panelist side, if you're on the Zoom, let me just double check really fast. If you're on the panelist side, yeah, I don't know. Well, you're muted, Diana. I could try unmuting and see if you actually come through that way, if you'd like. Well, I'll kind of monitor chat and see what comes up here. Okay, so let's take this for a quick vote before we go down to the then, and then we'll complete this particular exercise as it's intended. So let me grab everybody and focus on here. So we kind of get them all. All right, so you're gonna be voting, you're gonna get, says 20 divided by 10. So let's give you 3 votes. Basically put a vote on 3 of these questions, these what if questions that are connected to the initial set that you think would be interesting to answer in the next section. So again, 3 votes. Just put 1 per each card and we'll call this the what if. You don't have to vote on the blue cards nor the cards at the very top, just the white cards that you see in the center here. I have to go back to about the stuff. Got it. Oh, that gives you a path on where to go. Yeah, look at this. The golden burrito.
Whenever you pick it up for some reason, my serial with 3, whenever you pick it up, it's golden.
Oh, interesting. My son is making a golden burrito in Roblox.
Hey. It's called My Restaurant.
Oh, My Restaurant, sorry. Didn't get it right.
Alright, I'm gonna purchase another chair.
Okay, it looks like the bear and Sandy Lamb are not voting this one time around, so I'll close down the voting session. So here, wow, we've got 3 with 3 votes. So we have 4 what ifs here that all could potentially be down in the then. For the purposes of this particular, for the time constraint that we have, I'm going to just choose one of the 3 and bring down there rather than, normally we would take it into another exercise where we would do a little bit of mouse over to see which one would be what. So let's say out of those, I'm going to choose, let's see here. I'm reading the little, I'm going to make sure I get all of them. I'm going to choose, well, actually, let's do it this way. Let's do a little bit of, how many of you can see the results of the voting? You should be able to see it, like there's 3s, 2s, and 1s. Out of the 3s that are there, that you see in your interface, go ahead and put your mouse over top of the one that you think you'd like to move forward into then. So basically put it over any of the 3. So I'll highlight them so you know where they are. They are these 4. I'll go ahead and put them into light green. Go ahead and put your mouse over which one you'd like to move forward with. So you got 2 there, got 3 there. Looks like this one, what if we could have more systemic problems accessible for everyone is the one we want to kind of go with. So I'm going to bring this down into the what if. So this will be our last exercise down here. So basically the focus is going to be, if you do a what if question, then the next step is to basically put what the end result would be. So these 2 rows right here are meant to kind of show the what if and the we could be. So I'll separate them from this, put them down a little bit. So if our what if is, what if we can make systematic problems accessible for everyone, then the answers would go down in this section down here in these white cards. These 2 at the top are just examples. What if we could use creative typing to combat the fear of failure? We would be able to experiment with new products and services at a greater scale. So essentially, you're just pairing between the what if here and the answers you could have here. So I'll go ahead and leave those examples over to, could the author elaborate on this answer? Oh, that's a good thing. So the person that said, what if we could, actually, hang on, kind of move that card out of the way because I can't read the question entirely. There we go. So who was the person that did, what if we can make systematic problems accessible for everyone? Who was the author of that one?
It was me.
Okay, Finn. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, 1 second, I'm getting a call. Just pushed it away. So yeah, so I think I was a bit inspired by the question. There was one about who's trying to solve the systemic problem. And I think the nature of systemic problems is that they're obviously systemic, that there are more than one party of people that are affected, but they also make up the problem. So the question just came to mind: what would happen, and what is also the way to break down the complexity for everybody to be able to get together, to bring in the most possible perspectives on the problem and also on solutions. And maybe this could be a way to solve the problem.
Okay. Any other questions for Finn on this question? Would you like to question the questioner? No, so it says nobody does. All right, we'll take the last couple of minutes to fill out the rest of these cards. A little bit contained.
I have a golden pizza.
You now have a golden pizza. It's very good. I would be apt to order that if I saw it on a restaurant menu. I'd either be inspired or very afraid, depending on where it was. Yep, Phil, you asked a question about will a recording be available, and there will be. It's currently going on YouTube right now, but the recording will be available later on. And Diana, let's try tomorrow. I'll have the Zoom up about 10 minutes previous, so we can see if we can get that going, and just do a little bit of troubleshooting. For those of you who have at 11:30 on the panelist side or the observer side, feel free to kind of jump ship at this point. Well, there'll be plenty of opportunity to give feedback on this process as well as the other days if you're coming back on Tuesday or Wednesday. But I don't want to keep you from other obligations if you have them. So all you have to do is just give me a little bit of a wave on the visual and take off. Otherwise, you can stick around for the group photo, and you can even prepare for that by, as always, grabbing something that's near you and kind of putting it up.
I'll take a screenshot and maybe that can be good.
Okay, you could take a screenshot as well.
I'll take a screenshot of a golden something.
You're gonna take a screenshot of a golden something? Okay,
All right, how about a golden hamburger? This looks like a lump.
that'll work too. Okay, finish up whatever cards you're going on. We'll do one last vote and we'll call it a day. Yeah, I'm gonna take this one out. But we're just waiting on the line.
I took a screenshot, so maybe you can add that later.
I'll do it later, yeah. Send everyone here. Okay, one last vote, 3 votes on the then statement that corresponds to the particular question of what if we can make systemic problems accessible for everyone, okay? And we'll do one last one, 3 votes as before. I am gonna have to summon and get that unsound, organize the outcomes. All right, great. One last one, and we're all set. And this is going to be 3 votes on the then statement. And then we're set. By the way, it looks like on the 3rd row, on the 4th one down, there's a what if question. That one you can probably take out of the equation just because it's meant to be a then question. It could be a question on top of a question, which is an interesting way of looking at things. But for the purposes, it was meant to be kind of sort of addressing the original what if. Not that it was wrong.
And top right, number 3, and down left, number 4. Virtually similar, so you may add those together.
Yeah, and we just ran out of time. Otherwise, there would have been a little bit more scrutiny around this stuff.
I got
As a general rule, when you're facilitating 5 voting sessions is usually the maximum you can do. Then people start getting into voting fatigue, where basically choices are made, but not really concentrated on. So just something to keep in mind if you do facilitation in the future. In my experience, usually 5 is the max in any given point, whether it's 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, what have you. And 90 minutes is the max for going a session without a break. Right? Okay. Go ahead and end this voting session. See where everything kind of came out. So,
wow, golden sandwich.
The golden sandwich. So then people would understand their role and responsibility to solve the problem. So this one seems to be the one that kind of came out on top of a couple of 4s. Okay. So I'll kind of set this up for tomorrow. For reference, I'll switch screens here so you can kind of see what the rest of the dash was supposed to be. So the opportunities are on this side over here. Then from there was going to be how might we realize these outcomes. So it'd be basically building upon what we had done with the what if and then, and kind of getting into ideation, using a yes and approach to kind of improving on the ideas, then eventually ranking them through silent voting. So we didn't have time for these because we did a lot more dialogue, but normally the idea is that you work through these. Obviously with the feedback that I had gotten, these will be refined a bit so that they're a bit more concise rather than being open-ended, which would make for this entire thing being a little bit more palpable when it came to kind of exploring the space. Okay? So that's that kind of the overview, and day 2 will begin from the point where we're kind of looking at the audience. And I'm sure there'll be a lot more kind of like an observation and a kind of interpretation of what those exercises are as well. So what I'd like to do before we leave and send everybody off on their merry ways to do what we normally do traditionally is a group shot of everyone that participated, so that I can give due gratitude for everyone who spent their time together here. You can keep your virtual one on. You can grab your cat. You can grab whatever you like. I tend to do the time. I do this. But if you can, go ahead and give yourself a prop, or you can just, there you put a cup. Yeah, the cups will work. Do you want to get in this? Okay. We know you're here, Sandy. It's okay. Ready? 1 and 2 and I'm completely out of it. 3. All right.
You were floating.
Oh, it's fading in and out of the background. All right, everyone, you got things to go to. Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate all the feedback and the perspective. So day 2 will be tomorrow. It'll be all set up for you. We know how to go through any additional exercises. And thank you for making sure that I wasn't crazy about this stuff and I actually was somewhat useful. Okay? Enjoy the rest of your day, your night, get some rest wherever you are, and take care of yourself, okay? We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you,
Cheers.
Robert.
Thank you, Robert. Bye.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye, thanks.